DeSanto Propane is 4 generations strong as a trustworthy, family-owned business with unmatched customer service. Go online at DeSantoPropane.com for more info or call toll-free at 1-800-752-4574 today. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSanto Propane.
Inside to Stevenson, up against Kaminsky, fucking good in the ball!
Santel, all the way to the basket, foul, lays it in for 2!
Hello, high school basketball fans. Welcome to the Upstate Hoops podcast here on Monday, December 16th, 2024. I'm Jim Sinicropi, live inside the FingerLakes1.com studios with Paul Russo and Kyle Evans. We're going to recap the week in Wayne Finger Lakes High School basketball, debut our new power rankings, talk about the week ahead here as we inch closer towards Christmas. The Upstate Hoops podcast and all of our coverage of Wayne Finger Lakes High School basketball is brought to you thanks to the support of Little John and Barbie Orthodontics. Check out Dr. Rod and Dr. Liz online at littlejohnortho.com. Cicino's Pizzeria and Restaurant. Order online at cicinos.com. And DeSanto Propane. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSanto. So, got a little cold here, a little under the weather, but we'll fight through it, no problem. Here is welcome in Paul and Kyle. And we learned a lot this week. There was a lot of interesting results. I mean, the one takeaway I have is parity. It seems like there's not any really dominant teams, and some of the teams that we thought might be down had some big wins this week on both the girls and boys side, which sets up for what should be a pretty interesting season of basketball here. Lots of contenders for sectional titles, I think. Lots of teams that with high hopes that need to maybe get a little better, and Cam Blankenberg was back on the court.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I mean, the first first month of the season in between Thanksgiving and Christmas is always, I don't want to call it a crapshoot, but you're always figuring out what you kind of got still and stuff like that, and kind of keep it moving. I don't know. I mean, I get what you're saying. Don't know if I'm going to weigh as much right now as I would, say, the first couple weeks into January at that point, but I mean, last week was a fun week of basketball. I mean, for me, I was able to pay really good attention to Friday night, personally speaking. A lot of fun there. I know my main attention ended up becoming Wayne at Minders because as that game went on, it ended up getting really close and ended up being tight down the stretch. So, yeah, I mean, we alluded to it last week, though, a little bit, right? Where it's like each league kind of has probably about 2 or 3 teams, give or take, that are probably going to be fighting all year. And at the very least, I think that's what we saw last week for sure.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. We had, 3 buzzer beaters, 2 overtime games. Like you said, a lot came down to the wire. And then it was nice to see Blankenberg back. Lions played in a tough tournament up in Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't do so well, but, give him credit for showing up and trying to schedule tough competition. But, yeah, and now every team has played. Last week when we were on this pod, not all teams have played. So, yeah, it was a great week, and I think we do have a lot more great action coming this week.
Well, let's take a look at the results from the past 7 days since we were here last in studio. And starting out with the boys, it was Sagananda get a nice win over a league win over Sodus. Geneva boys with a win against Honeyway Falls Lima. Let's go down a little bit more here and look at some of these other games. Marcus Whitman beating Minders. They beat him last year, too, in Whitman. And then I think Minders returned the favor at home. But kudos to Greg O'Connor's bunch. They're a experienced team that really buys into Coach O'Connor's system and runs it well. And, that Minders wasn't even in that game. I watched most of that game on the stream, and Minders was never in that. And then Minders comes back on Friday and almost knocks off a really good Wayne team. So I don't know what you make of that, other than Whitman's looking good this year. And maybe Minders learned a little bit from that game in Whitman. Newark lost to Pittsburgh Sutherland, but I still think this Newark team's pretty strong. They schedule tough. Clyde Savannah boys had a good game against Sodus. Looking at maybe one of the surprises of the week may have been that Palmac game against Geneva. They beat Geneva by 2, one of those buzzer beaters I think that Kyle was talking about. And then Midlakes beats Waterloo, which was a bit of a surprise, I thought. So, and I guess we'll talk about a lot of things with these boys' results, but the first thing I want to talk about is Marcus Whitman boys beating Minders. Minders comes back Friday, almost beats Wayne. I don't know what to make of it, but I think this Marcus Whitman team has a lot of the elements to make another run at a sectional title. I think that's probably high on their list of priorities, or maybe their only priority this year would be to get another sectional title for Marcus Whitman. If you look at some of the names on the roster, Pendergrass have been there for a while, also a legacy. His brother was on the team that won the sectional title last. Same with Royston. And so you just look at these guys that grew up in the program and now are finally in their senior, some of them, most of them in their senior campaign, and it's kind of coming together. And that was a pretty nice win against Minders.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty high on the Wildcats this year. Buy stock now if you haven't. Go to the big board here. Buy. But yeah, I mean, it reflected in the way I voted. I think last week for power rankings reflects this week when we get to them for me personally. But I mean, I'm big on Royce and Prendergrass and Logan Storms as well. They mentioned it last week with that core group that they got, and I know Blue Eye had a couple of good games as well in there chipping in. So, I mean, we always talk about them, right? And at the very least, how they're always going to be playing tough and everything like that. And maybe last week, again, no exception there. Conversely, mentioned about Minders. I mean, I don't think you'll come across maybe having back-to-back games in a single week quite like that. A game against Whitman and a game against Wayne in that sense, where probably about 2 of the tougher teams you can face in 1 week.
Yeah, they go 0-2.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're Minders, you like to think you're going to beat Whitman, a little bit bigger school. But, historically, Minders has not done well at Whitman. They lost last year and went on to win a sectional title, so it's not that big of a deal that they lost that game. But hopefully they learned something from it. As I was watching the game, it seemed just a little bit slow, not, in their decision making. So the pass might be there. They wait an extra half a second before throwing it.
It's one of the things I saw in that Wayne game too.
Yeah, so I think that'll be something that comes with time. But they got a great core of kids. We mentioned it last week. Got Hillmeyer and Plummer in the middle. You got Luffman outside. You got Jack Brady. Jack had a nice sequence in that Whitman game where he hit a corner 3, then came down, grabbed a rebound on the other end. So I think it's just a matter of time for them to gel. But you watched some of that Wayne game on Friday night, Kyle, and, how were they able to stay with Wayne, to the end at home at Arthur L. Baker?
Yeah, what's weird about Wayne is even last year, I remember they played some low-scoring, tight, gritty battles. And that's kind of what it was on Friday, as you saw, 41-37. Blankenberg returned. I still don't think he's 100% based on the way I've seen, but again, you look, 26 points, basically scored half of their points. And that's really what I think it was. I think maybe if you take Cam out of that game and it's just Aiden Twist leading the way again, maybe that game shapes out a little differently. But, yeah, Wayne is just known to just grind out wins when they need to, and they did it again.
And then you had Palmac beating Geneva. Now, Geneva kind of on the upstart this year. I can't remember what they were in our power rankings, top 5 for sure. And Palmac may have been unranked last week for us. I don't remember if they made our top 10 or not.
I think they crept into the top 10.
Yeah, but And part of that is because, we don't get to see these teams, and we see a lot of new names on the roster, but that's a nice win for the Red Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, this is a Geneva team that did bring back a lot of people as well. Paul Mac's just one of those tough teams, though, man. They're always usually pretty super athletic in that sense where, sure, basketball may not be the number one, but they're always going to be hustling, running, doing everything kind of right in that sense, right? And, I mean, when it comes down to having a one-shot scenario in a sense, right? Coin flip, you never know.
How did that game end?
Yeah, so it was a missed 3-point shot by Logan Bauer.
Yeah.
And then Ryan Caffin, I think I'm saying his name right, grabbed the rebound under the basket and put it back in. But that was after, you have to mention this, Andrew Green of Geneva hit a game-tying 3 with about 14 seconds. So that was honestly my favorite game to watch. I was following along that one closely. And, of course, Paul Mac and the fans were very excited because it's basically an upset.
Yeah, I'd say it's an upset too. So we'll see how Geneva bounces back from there and where Pal Mac goes. East Rochester boys look good in their debut.
Yeah, it's interesting because I didn't know how to fully, I guess, grade them going into last week, right, when we first had our first podcast of the season and stuff like that. And it's always tough because, for me anyway, I don't know about you guys, but when you have a really good program opposite of you, say like on the girls' side of things in East Rochester the past few years, you kind of get overlooked a little bit. And I'm not going to sit here and say that doesn't happen with me looking at stuff like that. Maybe we are overlooking the East Rochester boys a little bit. Now, one game, whatever. But I know for me, I had to adjust my voting into the power rankings accordingly because of it.
Yeah, I was impressed with East Rochester for sure.
Yeah.
And then you got the Newark boys losing to Pittsford Sutherland, coming back and beating Penn Yan. I think the Penn Yan boys team is pretty tough this year, so a nice win, I think, on the road for Newark against Penn Yan. Looking forward to see more of Newark this year, get a feel for them. And then the Red Creek boys look pretty good, huh? And Gananda.
Yeah, I had I keep going to that power ranking side of thing, but it's one of those things where Gananda, we have a little bit of a known commodity going on there to a degree. Red Creek, like you mentioned it last week, Jim, right? When was the last time we kind of really talked about boys Red Creek? It's been a couple of years.
Yeah, no, they had a great stretch maybe 8, 9, 10 years ago where they had a really good team. But then I think they didn't even have a team for a couple years.
Yeah.
Couldn't get enough guys, so it's good to see them back and playing well.
So hopefully, and this kind of ties in a couple different things, right, that we've already talked about a little bit for me anyway. Like, it's hard to, like I say, it's hard to gauge these first couple weeks for us because we're still learning. We're trying to see what happens, right? You don't always try and not get too high on things and not get too low on things, right? Because people are still going to try and figure out, and you hope that every team has this sustained success. And I think that's one of the challenges, like I said, for me anyway, where it's like we're used to like some of these teams being the known commodities, and then you have like a Red Creek pop up, and it's like, what am I supposed to do here? But it's good to see them, step up here in the early part of the season and show some strength.
Yeah, interesting to see how Wayne County plays out this year. Lions, of course, not in the Wayne County League, so and the Clyde Savannah boys also look better, which is nice.
Yeah, and the Marion boys do not. Man, that's a tough watch. They've just been getting hammered each night. That's why I do look at the Red Creek boys and the Gananda boys, and I see they're undefeated, but then I look and they both have already played Marion, and you kind of just look at like the teams they've faced. When they start facing tougher competition, here come the losses. So that's kind of how I look at it. But they still deserve credit. You still got to go out and play well to win games. Yeah, and they're doing that.
Along that line too, the South Seneca boys off to a good start, which is nice to see. Here's a program that dominated on the sectional level and even into states going back quite a ways now, but multiple times in the school history. I think in the early 70s and then again around the late 2000s. But the roster size doesn't look very big when you look on the website, but good job getting off to an undefeated start for South Seneca.
Yeah, what is it, 6 or 7 guys on the roster?
Yeah, they have the 6 on the outright, and then it looks like, I don't know. I mean, based on what I've seen on like the huddle cam stuff, it's kind of maybe a rotating cast of a couple other guys every now and then. So
Remember, the Lions girls finished a game last year with 4 players.
Yeah.
They possibly could, considering their size.
Yeah, getting a couple foul troubles, foul outs, and so, but yeah. Anyways, definitely learned a lot this week on the boys' side. How about the girls? Oh, you got Dundee Bradford getting a win to start off the week on Monday, and then you got that overtime win for Clyde Savannah over East Rochester. Pretty impressive win there for Clyde Savannah.
big feather in the hat type win early in the season for them.
Yeah, Gananda girls with a win. South Seneca girls getting a win as well. Lions taking care of Red Creek. Geneva girls look to be a little improved. That's a program that kind of hit rock bottom. They're working their way back. But Wayne getting the win there on Wednesday night. Then you had Lions and Clyde girls facing off, and it was looks like a 17-point, 18-point win for Lions. Penn Yan girls look to be improved this year, but Newark, we might have been overlooking Newark a little bit in our first power rankings. We'll see where they pan out, but they're looking good this year so far. Bloomfield and Palmac, 62-48. Now, this Bloomfield girls team, I think, is winless now through 2 weeks, but I think they're a lot better. They've had a tough schedule. Palmac with a nice win there. I do like the Bloomfield girls, and, of course, Palmac, we think, is one of the elite teams in the Wayne Finger Lakes. Marcus Whitman girls off to a good start. I think undefeated behind Liz Royston. Been building that program up since she took over, I think, maybe 3 or 4 seasons ago. Good game between Mid Lakes and Waterloo. Minders girls debut at 1-0 with a win at Wayne. And, you see Newark losing to Pittsford Sutherland. That's a tough out-of-conference game, just like the boys. They're scheduling tough. And then, so there's the slate of girls results. What are your thoughts? Any games that stuck out?
Well, I mean, I kind of mentioned Clyde and East Rochester because, like, we go back to something I brought up, right? We talked about East Rochester a ton the past couple of years. And Clyde, kind of been stuck at what I would call in the middle a little bit, especially last season, coming off of, like, Jada Larson's senior year a couple of years ago and stuff like that. But it looks like, in my mind, they really are starting to take the corner to come back up and fight in this Wayne County league a little bit here, which is why I'm hopeful that, we was pretty exciting last year with the 3-team battle, right? East Rochester, Gananda, and Lions. Maybe we can throw a 4th team in there. That'd be pretty exciting. So
Yeah, I think so.
Carnivale led the way for them with 15. Nia Eldridge on the East Rochester side, a name that I think she's in her 4th year of experience at the varsity level. She got 15 as well in that game. So that one stuck out to me. Mid Lakes and Waterloo stuck out too. This is a Mid Lakes team that I didn't know what to really fully expect this year. Mid Lake probably thought they were going to be on the bottom half of the Finger Lakes East. They're punching a little bit above the weight class more than I thought they would here early on. So I'm excited to see if that continues. And then, Minders and Wayne Friday night as well, kind of mentioned that a little bit. That's an interesting game. Kind of thought Minders maybe.
Anna Brown-Trice's coaching debut.
And maybe thought
Minders
would have a little bit bigger of a win there, but Wayne's a tough team as well, though. We saw it last year. They didn't bring a ton back in terms of roster that produced a ton last year, but maybe they're going to be one of those teams that you don't want to catch them on the right night type scenario. So those were the 3 ones that really stuck out to me anyway on that side. And the Newark girls for me as well. I'm really keeping an eye on them this year. I'm pretty high on them personally. So those were kind of the main points for me on the girls' side of things this past week.
What about you, Kyle?
Yeah, I'm very high on the Newark girls. I saw a little bit of the game. They led by 6 at halftime against this really tough Pittsburgh Sutherland team. But one of their players scored 28 points in the second half, and Newark just couldn't contain her. And then, I thought the Lions-Clyde game stuck out more because Jay LaBelle only had 10 points, and they won by 18. So that just shows that a girl like Carmela Parker stepped up, and her sister chipped in really well too. So, and then Minders, opened the season extremely late. I think they were one of the last teams to get going, and got a good win against Wayne, who I think is not going to be as good as they've been, but still not going to be an easy game.
Yeah, and mine just shaking off the rust a little bit. I think it's a good core at Minders for a chance to make a section run. They made a nice run last year. They did lose a lot to graduation, but like I said, Hannah Brown Trice in her first year as head coach got the win in his 1-0 career. So I guess we should take a look at the power rankings now and see how things are shaking up in the rankings. Start with the boys, and Wayne remains number 1. Now, Lions at number 2, despite 2 losses in Buffalo. And I got to give Coach Schott credit. Go out there and play some tough competition. Get ready for sectionals. Get ready for maybe beyond sectionals as well. I mean, the expectations are always high in Lions. And, they faced some. They were 0-2 out in Buffalo, but they faced some really tough competition. And it really is letting those kids know, okay, this is what we got to do between now and the postseason to get ready to compete on that level. So, obviously the losses didn't hurt them too much in our power rankings. I personally, I think had them 3. I think I had Newark ahead of them, but again, Newark with a loss at Pittsburgh Sutherland this week too. So they scheduled tough and came out with a loss, and neither one really hurt in our power rankings. But the big jump was Marcus Whitman coming all the way up to number 4 with that nice win against Minders at home. And then you got Geneva number 5, despite losing to Pal Mac in a close loss. And then Minders with 2 losses at 6. I think they dropped a couple spots from last week.
Yep.
And then Pal Mac, number 7. East Rochester boys debut at 8, and then Gananda and Waterloo back-to-back 9 and 10. Red Creek missing out there. I'm breaking into the top 10 maybe next week with a couple more wins. But any grievances?
I don't necessarily have any personally. I'm going to start incorporating. I didn't know how I wanted to do this. I guess I'm going to do a college football playoff style, quote unquote. My 2 teams I actually just had out kind of struggled a little bit at the bottom, but just 2 shout-outs to South Seneca and Mid Lakes on the boys' side. Both had pretty good weeks, made things potentially interesting if one team might have dropped one more game at the bottom. Also shout-out to Lions. They played a school that I'm quasi-familiar with from my college days in Erie, Pennsylvania, and Cathedral Prep, so that was pretty interesting. I saw that when Kyle told me. I'm like, oh, that's a team I actually recognize. I don't have anything. In fact, my voting actually from 1 through 6 matched up on there. So no grievances for me for the week, I suppose.
Yeah, it's tough. South Seneca's tough to gauge right now for a lot of those West teams. But I can tell you what, if they get a couple more wins, in the coming weeks, wouldn't be surprised to see them pop into the top 10. They do have some talent on that roster, some familiar names. How about you, Kyle? Any grievances with the power rankings as they shook out this week for the boys?
Not really. For the most part, I agree. I do think Marcus Whitman will keep climbing their way up, though. That's for sure. I think Waterloo, as good as they started, I think unfortunately they're going to keep dropping backwards. Especially as these other teams get rolling, like we saw East Rochester finally play their games. I'm not really sure about how Gananda is going to be, but Mid Lakes deserves credit because they beat Bloomfield and Waterloo this past week. The Lions boys, it wouldn't surprise me if they go back to number 1 even in the next week, or 2 weeks from now. I mean, that's just very tough competition to start off with, but as you said, it's good to start a season that way so you know where you stand and what you need to work on. And I think if you watch that game, it was really just sloppy. I think Lions played sloppy in both games, and if they could just be a little bit better and clean up the turnovers, they had 37 turnovers in 2 games.
It's too many.
They have no problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, again, play that tough competition, look at the game tape, and Coach Schott will be working on those things as they move forward. It can only be beneficial, much more beneficial than blowing out, some former league mates by 80 points. And really that's what it's all about is preparing, for the postseason, especially if you're Lions now, battling for the past decade with East High for the most sectional titles of all time in Section 5. So, Yeah, Mid Lakes, Waterloo. Be fun to see more action here as we head towards the new year. So let's kick it over to the girls' side. Check out their power rankings. And we got a tie at the top. Oh, and guess what? It's two of the biggest rivals in recent memory. Waterloo and Palmac. I'm a little surprised to see Minders as high as number 3, but there they are. They're 1-0. Lions girls nipping Clyde Savannah. Clyde Savannah not even in the top 10 despite their fairly promising start to the season. Newark at number 5. See, I think this is where our power rankings might be screwed up. I think that Newark team is going to battle it out with Palmac and Waterloo in the East, but they're 5 for this week. Marcus Whitman girls, just like the boys, moving on up the power rankings. Dundee Bradford, a perennial stalwart out of the West at 7. And then you got those Wayne County rivals, Gananda and East Rochester, back to back. I personally dropped ER right out of my top 10. You got to win a few games. And then the Penn Yan girls at number 10 look to be tough too. So, look at this thing, and one thing you can say is that it's going to be a tough year in the Finger Lakes East.
Yeah, for sure. I did have Clyde Savannah in my top 10. I had them in at 10, so a bit of a tough one there. It's tough. I bring it up on here a ton, and for me personally, if you win, I can't realistically move you down necessarily.
Well, no, it's all about results.
I'm talking towards more of the top in this situation.
It's all about results on the court.
Yeah.
We can think a team's good, but if they aren't showing it, then
I go back to something I brought up a ton here recently in the college football space. Strength of schedule means nothing if you don't win games. So, at the end of the day, kind of go with that. But it was a tough week because you had a lot of teams just kind of split the week, in addition to what, whether there was a single game or whatever. So the girls one was a little bit tougher for me again this week, but we're getting a little bit clearer. And then much like the boys, a couple shout outs. I know Ophir, but I got Bloomfield. This shout out to them. They're hanging tough. I think they're going to crack the top 10 eventually here. And then same for the Mid Lakes girls. They're hanging tough with these teams. And
another East team.
Yeah. So they were the last two for me outside looking in.
Yeah, I think Bloomfield, I'm interested to see how Bloomfield does when they get more games under their belt. I think they are probably one of the best 10 teams in the Wayne Finger Lakes. Kyle, what are your reactions to this girls' power rankings, or week 2 power rankings?
Yeah, I had Newark ahead of Lions, very high on Newark. In fact, they could very well move into the 3rd spot by next week. And then I know Marcus Whitman is undefeated, but if you look, they played Naples, Addison, not good teams. I think Dundee Bradford is better than they are, but time will tell because, of course, they'll meet at least twice.
Yep.
And then I did have Clyde number 10. I had to give him some credit for beating ER and playing really well on the road, so I had to throw them in at number 10. But other than that, I pretty much agree. Maybe now that I'm second-guessing, though, I should have bumped ER down further. I had them at 7 because they did go 0-2.
We haven't seen them win a game yet, right?
Yeah, are they 1-2? Yeah, they're 1-2. So yeah, other than that though, I mostly agree with what's there. Well,
as you say, these power rankings really are pretty fluid through the first month of the season, and then they kind of get set going forward, and you'll see less movement. So still time if your school and your team didn't break into the top 10, just know that we're keeping an eye on how they do and keep winning games, and you'll certainly get in there. And not that it means anything, but also some of these, especially on the girls' side, you're going to see these teams at the top of the power rankings play each other. So that'll be decided on the court. On the boys' side, not everybody's playing each other as much, I think, with Wayne. Wayne and Lions playing each other this year?
Yeah, that's not until
late January.
Yeah, but I love to see that. And again, kudos to Coach Schott for doing that, and Coach Thompson to play a team 2 classes below, because that's not actually a great strategy for sectional rankings. So, but I love to see it, and a lot of this will be figured out on the court, which is the way it should be, right?
Oh yeah.
So let's take a look at the week ahead. As the last week of action before Christmas, I don't know if there's any games next Monday night, which would be 2 days before
There-
Christmas.
No.
Not for the Wayne Finger Lakes.
Okay, so this what you're looking at here is the last competition before
It's a 5-day break.
It's
Christmas.
this is a pretty big week ahead for league, and also there's some rivalry games sprinkled in here as well.
So looking at the boys, you got Minders at Geneva. Now Minders, we didn't really hurt them too much in our power rankings, despite going 0-2. Now they got to go at Geneva to the Panthers Den, and they need a win. I think if they go 0-3 between Whitman, Wayne, and Geneva, you got to get a win. So this is a big game. It's also a big game for Geneva after losing to Palmac. So they're hosting Minders. They're probably favored in that game, but a big game on Tuesday night in Geneva for sure in the Finger Lakes East. Marcus Whitman stepping out of the league at Livonia. You see that matchup annually. Palmac boys at Waterloo, a big game. Mid-Lakes boys at Newark. And then Penn traveling to Wayne. So Tuesday night, you got a full slate of Finger Lakes East boys action, which is pretty cool. And then on Wednesday night, a small slate of games, including North Rose Wolcott and Red Creek. That's a rivalry game for those that remember some of the battles that they used to have. So keep an eye on that one. Thursday night, Lions at Clyde. Now, Clyde Savannah boys are better. This game has been an afterthought for the past couple of years, and I think Lions is still going to be pretty heavily favored in that game, but I'm saying there's a chance. It's at Clyde Savannah. One of the best rivalries in all of Section 5 is that Clyde and Lions game. Do the Golden Eagles got a shot this year, you guys think? I got the line at probably 16, but last year the line might have been 30.
Well, you play to win the game, right? But I'm gonna go Lions here.
I'll take Lions by 30.
30?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know what? If one thing I know about Coach Schott is he loves to beat Clyde. Because back in the day when he played, and as a lot of us remember, those games were just phenomenal.
Not all that long ago that it was also phenomenal.
Oh, I saw some of the best high school games I've ever seen were Lions-Clyde games involving Damon Hunter, Justice Smith, and for Clyde, Drew Carnivale and the Chance brothers. I saw Marcus Chance make, I think it was 6 first-half three-pointers. Just amazing games. I would love to see that come back. I'm glad to see Clyde's trending back in the right direction for that. Throw that schedule back up one more time. Let's see what's going on here on Friday and Saturday. Wayne at Geneva. So that's going to be a good test. So a big week for Geneva. And then Minders at Mid-Lakes. Now we talk about Minders going to Geneva, that being a tough game. Now they're going at Mid-Lakes. So, like I said, Minders got to start winning some basketball games here. Newark at Waterloo is intriguing. So the theme for this week, especially in the Finger Lakes East, is, league games of implication early here before Christmas. Penn Yan at Palmac. East Rochester going out of league to play at York, and then Gananda coming to Minders on Saturday. So Minders playing back-to-back nights, Friday, Saturday, and South Seneca in action, crossing over against Sodus going on their road. So it's a big week for Minders, I think, given the fact that they went 0-2 last week.
Yeah, don't want to go into the. I don't like calling it extended break, but go into the lull of the 2 weeks of no school and stuff like that. You want to pick up a win there. Do want to give a shot. Like I mentioned, there's some rivalries. I know they aren't Wayne Finger Lakes anymore, but Victor Candig was this Friday night as well. That's a pretty big one. And they're doing what we haven't talked about it yet this year, which chalk it up for the first time, but really wish some of these schools did more of the doubleheaders between varsity girls and varsity boys.
I love the girls-boys doubleheader, especially during the holidays. People are home. It really packs in the gym, especially when you're talking about crosstown, where the gym gets filled with people who don't got to drive too far. Minders and Waterloo have done it a lot in the past, and it was always just a packed house. Waterloo used to bring the band into the gymnasium for it. So, yeah, love seeing that. It is, from a scheduling perspective, a little disruptive as the JVs usually play. So when they do those boys and girls, the JVs got to go. And with home and away stuff, it it makes it tough on the scheduling. But honestly, I think it's a treat for families and friends of the players, and actually just more interest too in the general community when they do that. Those boys girls doubleheaders.
But I just wanted to make note of that as well. And then I don't know, you pinpointed all the games I had, Jim, to be completely honest. So, but it's just one of those weeks where the league matchups are pretty big, and teams who are at an interesting spot need to, if you do lose, you can't make it look bad, as I would call it.
Yeah, Kyle, we're going to know a lot more about the Finger Lakes East, I think, after this week.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like you said, I think it's a big week for Minders. Can't lose any more in a row. Geneva, we kind of didn't know who they were last year either. There was games that they played Wayne tough, and then they would lose a big game. Yeah. So it seems like the East is always unknown, and that's why we just need more weeks to figure it out.
Yeah, so that game, I think Tuesday night, Minders at Geneva, both teams coming off a loss. It's going to be as big a game as you can find, I think, before Christmas.
And one quick thing, I think we did forget a game. Maybe I missed it. But tomorrow night, World of Inquiry versus Lions. Was that up there?
Yeah.
All right, sorry.
Oh, yeah, that'll be good. Is it
battle? It's 3-0 World of Inquiry in Lions against 2-2 Lions.
At the community center they playing?
Yep.
Yeah, is Lions playing all their games at the community center this year? So no more Atwood.
Yeah, this is, I think, the third year, for sure the second full season of that. Might be the third full season.
The community center is a great facility for basketball. There's no doubt about that. But also the Atwood was pretty cool.
The parquet floor.
yeah, no, it's a nice, the lighting, the seating, the parquet floor. Definitely like the community center, just not quite as intimate as the old Atwood gymnasium. Right. But what are you going to do? Let's take a look at the girls' schedule for this week. Romulus girls at Clyde. And Romulus girls are better. That'll be a test. It'll be interesting to see how Clyde responds. South Seneca playing out against Section 3's Hannibal. East Rochester, Ganando. There is another rivalry that brings them out. We'll see how that one goes. A chance for East Rochester to get on the winning side. Ganando girls, nothing really like more than beating East Rochester. Geneva playing a West team in Red Jacket. Newark Mid-Lakes girls, there's a good one. Waterloo Palmac, tied for number one in our power rankings, facing off on Tuesday night in Palmac. And then Romulus, back-to-back nights. They got at Clyde Savannah and then at Marcus Whitman. So some great games here early in the week. Wednesday night, Gananda at Clyde Savannah, a tough game for both teams and a chance for Clyde Savannah girls to continue their ups trend. Sodus at East Rochester, Bloomfield at Minders. So Minders girls playing their second game of the year finally on Wednesday night, and they'll be hosting Bloomfield. If you're out and about in Seneca Falls, you want to see a good girls basketball game, I think that'll be a good one. Bloomfield girls pretty tough. HAC and Honeoye on Thursday, Whitman at Red Jacket. Romulus, South Seneca, talk about rivalries, maybe a little luster lost from the Romulus South Seneca rivalries of the past, but this one should be a good one. And then on Saturday, or is that Friday?
That's Friday.
Friday night. Yeah, there's no Saturday games for the girls this week. Okay. Bloomfield at Wayne, Clyde Savannah at Sodus, Victor Canandaigua girls, as we mentioned. Naples at Dundee Bradford, Lions at Gananda. That'll be a tough game for both teams. Geneva playing early Wilson / early college. I guess there's some type of combined roster there. Mid-Lakes at Minders, Waterloo at Newark. That'll be a big one too. Boy, Waterloo at Newark. So if you're the Waterloo girls, you got Palmac and Newark this week. So we're going to find out who's number one. There's not going to be a tie for number one at the end of this week, I think.
I don't think so.
It's going to be decided on the court.
I would hope not anyway.
Palmac at Penn Yan, that will not be an easy game for Palmac. And then Marcus Whitman hosting Avon, and East Rochester girls also playing York. So, wow, great week of basketball.
Yeah.
Kyle, you should be very excited to do the updates this week.
Yeah, I mean, on this Friday night, I counted 21 games. And last Friday, when I was doing all that stuff, it was 19. So I was trying to pull up all the feeds. That's how I knew about the buzzer beaters.
Yep.
Because, of course, you don't really know that from a box score that a coach sends you.
Well, I know I definitely appreciate the recaps. It's the first link I click on Finger Lakes 1, either before I go to bed or the next morning. and see how everybody did. And it's great to see, instead of just seeing a score, you get to see actually how it played out. So good stuff for sure. So any parting shots, fellas, before we head out for another week?
Well, like I said, it's a pretty big league week, rivalry week. It will be interesting because, I mean, when we reconvene next week, you know, we're going to be on the doorstep of Christmas Eve and whatever, and there won't be much to preview. It'll be a lot of recapping. So if you're the teams, give us some cool stuff to talk about. You know, that's what I'm hoping for. Give us all contested, close games. Our jobs are way funner when we have fun stuff to talk about like that.
Yeah, no doubt. Kyle,
More overtime games. I counted. We've had 4 so far, which is kind of a lot. It seems like already.
Yeah.
And then just close games come down to the wire. That maybe a couple more buzzer beaters would be cool. Just competitive stuff. You know, no more blowouts.
Yeah, blowouts aren't fun, but definitely
not quite maybe for the Upstate Hoops podcast exactly. I'm trying to figure out what the end of the weeks will look like. We're going to get out and broadcast one game here at the end of the week, but
okay.
Have to do a little bit of a toss-up here and look at the schedules of other places and stuff like that.
There's a lot to choose from this week.
Yeah, the end of the week we got a pretty good slate to potentially go from here. So
if there was a boys-girls doubleheader, that would be a candidate.
Well, that one might be an automatic go and do it type thing. Yeah. So, but alas.
Yeah, we're gonna get the live broadcasting going. Of course, with every game being streamed by the school, it's not what it used to be when we go do the live games. Of course, we're doing them on FL1 radio, and then we're kind of preparing for the we go all out during the postseason. But great week of basketball here as we head towards Christmas. We will be back next Monday. That'll probably be our last show of the year. We'll probably take a week off the following Monday, with there being such a light slate, and then we really get into the heart of the schedule in early 2025. So
holla.
So thanks for joining us on this edition of the Upstate Hoops Podcast. Connect with us on Facebook, X, and TikTok. Subscribe to us on YouTube, and our audio-only podcast is available most everywhere you enjoy your audio content. You can find our show, live stream games, and local news, weather, and sports 24/7 on the free FingerLakes1.com Android or iPhone app. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next Monday, 2 days before Christmas. So until then, have a great week.